Okay, welcome. In this video I'm gonna show you equipment that I'm gonna use to capture shoe for photogrammetry challenge. So first of all, this is my camera, Nikon D610 with Nikkor 105mm for macro shooting. But for object capture I'm gonna use Tamron zoom lens at 28mm. Of course, X-ray passport for a correct white balance, table that I'm gonna mount on my tripod. There's a mounting on the back, and two tripods. One for my camera with really solid ball head, and one that I'm gonna use under my table and later as the stand for a shoe. Here we got two extending rods that I'm gonna use with that tripod, not for my camera. Ring flash AR400, purchased from Poland from that company, but like I said many times, doesn't matter what kind of company that produce, that model only matter. They not change at all. There's no difference, except that subtitle up here. Then the last object from the hardware is turntable, electronic one, covered with flocked velvet, and as you can see it's pure black, and that's why we use flocked velvet, not typical one that is really reflective. Okay, first thing that we're supposed to always make before capturing any kind of object is to take a look at it, find any kind of problematic things with it. If it's a stone, then surroundings. If it's a shoe, then we need to focus on the elements that gonna bring an issue like that metal, shining surface, flimsiness of that shoe, and how big it is, right? So as you can see, when you place it, it's gonna start slowly bend down. So my approach for that will be by using those extending rods, because when I place them inside under that kind of degree, it's gonna add structural strength, slightly bent shoe of course, but about that later. So with that kind of easy life hacks, you can solve any kind of problems. You can use clamp, ghost neck clamp, that bent really nice, or any kind of object, anything that allows you to capture object. So as you can see, with that extended rod inside, it's perfectly fine. So with that, how are we gonna capture that shoe, especially on the bottom? Because with that extending rod inside, we have a shoe in that position, but then we have those shoe lenses, right? So when we flip in that position, that zipper shoe lenses are in the different position. So my idea will be to capture that shoe in that position, right? And then I'm gonna rotate it, place it on the tripod like this. So there's my tripod, right? And place it inside of the shoe, and I'm gonna capture my pictures quite close to cut down everything that is flimsy and really easy to change position. So we're gonna have two picture sets, one with the whole shoe and one for a top part with enough connection points everywhere to connect those two elements. And then I'm gonna bend my camera all over the shoe instead of moving it. So that's supposed to give us full model of the shoe. Of course, inside will be not captured correctly, but we can fix those issues in the post-processing, or we could eventually capture material for inside. But that might be a quite big problem. We could, in this case, unzip that shoe and capture that. But those depends from the object and request from the client, right? So see you later after I set up my equipment. Okay, it takes quite a lot because I figured out a couple of other things that I can improve. So normally I would set up my camera not horizontally but vertically to catch as much as height of that shoe, but I made some DIY and right now my mounting point is deep in epoxy. So instead of that, my camera is horizontally, right? So instead of catching up quite a lot of that shoe in one picture, I'm gonna take few more rows. So that's gonna be my first row, then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then I'm gonna rotate my camera to catch up here, then up here, and maybe up here. So about the setup, as I mentioned before, there is my first tripod that is a mounting point for my table. It's a table that you can buy for projector on Amazon. This is my rotating table, automatically connected up here. Remote pilot, remote. So in theory, I can make manual by certain point of degree, so 1/16 of 360, that kind of things. So really useful. Or I can just make really slow motion on that turntable and set up burst shot on my camera. So let's see. It will be possible for me to show you how that looks from my camera. Let's see. Would be really nice. If not, then touche. Okay, so this is how it looks right now. So let's bump up light. And when I rotate my polarization filter, you can clearly see how much we remove of the shining elements. So in this case, that hill. So I forgot to mention a strategy about the materials. So like I mentioned before, we have a metal heel and leather that is really shiny. So in theory, I supposed to dust it with the floor, chalk, or anything that makes that surface less shiny. But I'm gonna take a look how it's gonna work with the polarization light, especially there's no sunlight outside and I can just switch off my all lights except that one. So you can notice that on my turntable is part of the pencil and it's exactly 10 centimeters. It's usually good practice to have point of reference of the size for your scene, and done closer to the object size, done better, because imagine using that pencil to measure or set up measurements for a building, right? But for this case it will be perfectly fine because it's 10 centimeters, shoe is not that much bigger, and you can notice those funny sticky notes. Those are called primal points. Anyway, right, the capture gonna discover those automatically as control points. So instead of playing with pictures control points manually by placing up here, somewhere, blah blah blah, Reality Capture gonna try to set up points for all pictures for all those invisible frame. So in theory, if I gonna have a problem with capturing that really narrow part, I can take a picture from here, and Reality Capture gonna know that part of the shoe, that part of the shoe, that part of the shoe, so automatically gonna align with that degree that have a known orientation. So that's supposed to easy up my work. Background, nothing fancy. You can use t-shirt or any kind of material, even bathtub. Anything that remove really bright and shiny surface from the background. And basically, yes, this is my camera. So I use R400 as everybody else that I know. I connected with the really cheap PC cable, connected to the hot shoe on my camera up here, right? And on the top, on the front of the light of the flash point, I have that mounting plastic mount for my polarization filter. And of course, on my camera itself, on the lens, I have second polarization filter, so they cancel any kind of unwanted reflections. Let me think. Something else? No. That's gonna be last video, and next time I'm gonna share results of that capture.